So far, we've covered two different types of currencies: commodity currency and representative currency. Rice stones and gold are examples of commodity currencies. Jalsi paper cash is representative currency. The gold standard was based on a system of representative currency where paper currency represented a certain amount of gold. Under the gold standard, all participating countries knew exactly what each other's currency was worth based on its value relative to gold. For example, the 1 ounce of gold was worth $20 in the year 1900. For this reason, the gold standard made trading between countries much easier, almost as though everyone was speaking the same language. As the saying goes, all good things must come to an end, and that was certainly true of the gold standard come the year 1914. Austria declared war on Russia, which caused a declaration of war domino effect. Germany declared war on Russia and France, Britain declared war on Germany, Japan declared war on Germany, and Austria declared war on Japan. War is expensive, and World War I was exceptionally expensive thanks to the cost of modern warfare. Tanks and planes do not come cheap. One country after another, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and others abandoned the gold standard so they could print what cash they needed to fund the war effort. Printing money at will, even if to fund a war effort, is a dangerous game, not least because wars inevitably end, but newly printed money doesn't just disappear. US President Herbert Hoover famously commented to Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1933, "We have gold because we cannot trust governments." In other words, the gold standard was the only thing standing between a government and any reason to print more currency. Alas, all of these major powers needed money to pay for weapons, artillery, factory workers, and soldiers. Governments were printing so much money that global inflation rose on average by 100% between the year 1914 and 1918. After 20 million lives were lost on the front line, Germany finally surrendered at the end of 1918. The Allied powers forced Germany to pay war reparations, causing its economy to buckle under the pressure of immense debt in the 1920s. A regular, middle-aged man at the time by the name of Adolf Hitler witnessed the damaging impact of war reparations and the resulting hyperinflation of the German Reichsmark. To give you an idea of just how bad it was, a loaf of bread cost 1/4 of a Reichsmark in 1918, and by the end of 1923, that same loaf of bread cost 80 billion Reichsmarks. The price of basic goods was increasing so rapidly that one German man reported ordering a coffee but found that its price had doubled in the short time it arrived at his table. How's that for inflation? Hitler found it absurdly unfair that Germany had to repay so much money to the major powers for losing the war. He wanted revenge for the German people and the economic hardship they endured. So in 1939, Hitler led Germany to invade Poland and declared war on Britain and France. World War II was even more expensive than World War I, and governments once again started printing money since you need even more money to win a war of this scale. Hungary was the worst affected by hyperinflation, with its currency doubling in value every 15.6 hours. Banknotes became so worthless that people used it as wallpaper and to light their kitchen stoves. After 70 million lives were lost and World War II concluded, countries agreed that they needed a gold standard version 2.0 to bring everyone back into line and restore health to the global economy. So in 1944, delegates from 44 nations gathered at the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference held at the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods. All 44 delegates created a new international monetary system known as the Bretton Woods system. The Bretton Woods system fixed the price of gold at $35 per ounce. Fiat currency could be exchanged for physical gold at any time, although unlike traditional gold standard, countries were still allowed to stimulate their economies by printing fiat currency as they pleased. The Bretton Woods system worked well for a time until President Lyndon Johnson spent too much money on Great Society welfare building programs and the Vietnam War, both of which activities inflated the value of the US dollar to the point where 1 ounce of gold was realistically worth much less than $35. Finally, in August 1971, President Nixon announced that the US would abandon the Bretton Woods system and no longer allow fiat currency to be exchanged directly for physical gold. Declaring an end to the Bretton Woods system basically bailed the US out of its own financial mess and allowed the US dollar to retain its dominance in the global financial markets. The world embraced a new era of trading and transacting with fiat currency backed by well, nothing, except the good word of the government. Fiat currency has no intrinsic value, so why do we use it? When the government issues fiat currency, it's declared legal tender and set as the standard for debt repayment. In other words, you are forced to use fiat currency if you wish to borrow money from the bank. Today's global monetary system, based on fiat currency, is a double-edged sword. On one side, the world has experienced explosive growth and a level of wealth unseen before. On the other hand, management of fiat currency by governments and central banks has led to some of the worst economic crises in recent history, driving a further wedge between rich and poor. We'll leave some resources below if you'd like to explore the pros and cons of fiat currency on your own. That's a wrap. The history of currency is really just one big exercise of trial and error. What works for a time doesn't work forever. Imagine when people first started using paper cash and cheques to pay for goods and services. It would have felt strange and unfamiliar. How could people trust that it would work? Fast forward a few hundred years and people are experiencing the same feelings about cryptocurrency. How can you be sure that cryptocurrency, which looks like a line of code on a screen, is valuable? See you in the next lesson where we take a quick detour to explain inflation. See you then.